Instructions for accessing subtitles in a language other than English are included on our board meetings webpage as well as in the description below. Instrucciones para acceder a los subtítulos en un idioma que no sea el inglés se incluyen en nuestra página web de reuniones de la Junta, así como en la descripción a continuación.
Hello and welcome. It is Wednesday, September 13th, and this is the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. It is 6:19, and I am calling the meeting to order. We have one item on our closed agenda this evening, which is Public Employee Evaluation, title of Superintendent. So we will now recess into closed session at 6:20. Hello, and welcome back to the Ross Valley School Board of Trustees regular meeting on Wednesday, September 13th. We are reconvening in open session out of closed session at 7:22 p.m. When we went into our closed session, we did not have anybody in the audience, so there was no public comment on our closed session agenda item. So now we are coming out, and there is nothing to report on from the closed session. There was not any action items. So we are going to move now to our procedural items before getting into our meeting. And we have the Pledge of Allegiance and our mission moment, and then adoption of the agenda. So not a big thing tonight, other than one of our presentation action items tonight is around shared services, which made me think a little bit about how, as a public agency, we really are here to, education is a shared service. We create the sharing of all of the parents and all of the staff, and we all come together as a community to provide education for all of our children. And so just thinking about shared services between districts is an expansion of that idea. That's what I was thinking about this evening. So if you all would like to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any questions or about the agenda? If not, we can entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Ryan?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Chris? Aye. Rachel? Aye. Shelley? Aye. Okay, we have our agenda to move forward. Public comment regarding items not on the agenda. We don't have anyone in our audience here this evening for any public comments on non-agenda items. We also have our correspondence and communication items in our in that section there. So we are continuing to add items to that. And we can then move on to presentation and or action items. And our first one is the Marin County School Boards Association shared services. So we have a presentation on those shared services. Thank you. Welcome. Marcy, do you have any introductions you want to make?
Yes, I want to welcome Denise Bowmans, one of the trustees from the Lagunitas School District. And as you may all remember, Denise was going to be with us at our May 2023 meeting, but unfortunately she wasn't able to make it, so we rescheduled for tonight. And so glad you could be here tonight, Denise, to talk about Marin County School Board's ideas around and goals around shared services for school districts. And then I'll let you go ahead and talk if I forget anything, or I'll ask you later. Okay. Thanks so much, Denise, for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Just a little bit of background, because most of you already have been through the spiel at least once at a School Boards Association dinner. So I am not normally have anything to do with any of the things in the county, but this one, I chaired Golden Bell for 100 years, but this brought me kind of out of retirement, this particular subject. And I'll just tell you a little bit, if you weren't there, how we got here. So we had a table exercise at one of the dinners. I can't even remember which one. I believe it was the spring. it's been almost 2 years now. So the table exercise was showing where interests were or things that we could tackle as a group. So we ended up with, out of that, with 5 key priorities. So they were how to attract and retain a diverse and high-quality staff inclusive of school boards, how to expand meaningful collaboration and consolidation and sharing of services, how to implement and sustain universal TK, and how to be an effective school board member. The 5th one was equity, and we decided that equity has to do with every single thing we do in every school district. So we weren't going to dictate equity to, that's what we're all working on. I don't think there's any district that isn't applying equity over everything that they do. So we took that one off. So when we went through this, what caught both of ours, mine and Emily from TAM, what caught both of our eyes about this is that in Marin County, we've tackled this particular subject in a variety of ways, but it's never really gotten any traction. And if you've been around for any length of time, you'll know that E2 sort of does this, that we've had different kinds of committees to do this, but both of us felt like this really needed to be all by itself, and we didn't want to dump it onto another committee. We didn't want to push it on the superintendents, you know, knowing that sometimes things get pushed aside or don't get very much attention because superintendents are busy people. So we decided that we would do a dog and pony show, so here we are, to come out and look board to board member in the eye and say, please, at very least, fill out the survey. That's all I'm asking. We're not giving out money, nobody's competing for anything. We want each board member to look at this survey and think about it from your perspective, not from your board perspective, but each one of you has a different thought or a different special project or whatever it is, and we want to know what those are, and we didn't want you to have to say them in front of your fellow board members and then write them down and this is what we all think. So that's why we've gotten this personal with it, is that we wanted you to see both either Emily or I saying this is really important. And one of the arguments that we often get, especially in Marin County, is why do we have all these school districts? Well, our pat answer is, well, we used to have 52. Well, that doesn't even make sense as an answer anymore. What we really need to do is find a way or find some ways to work together on whatever it is. Right now, I know all of us are having issues with people, hiring people, with teachers, with substitutes, with janitors, with custodians, with lunch ladies, whoever it is. None of us has a surplus of those, but maybe there's a way that we can all work together and put a bigger pool together. Us being out in West Marin, people don't want to come out and work for us, but maybe somebody in your district might, or maybe somebody in my district might come that lives in another district might be willing to jump over to the district next door. And so that's kind of the basis of all of it. And I grew up in Marin County. I grew up in Fairfax. I went to Central School and to White Hill and to Drake when Archie Williams taught at Drake. I'm that old. And several generations of my family have gone through this particular school district or the Fairfax one, and it feels dear to me, especially in light of some of the stuff that you guys have been going through lately. So we want to make this as easy on you as possible, answer any questions that you have, and then ask you to fill out the survey when it comes to you. We are not doing it now, so we're not violating Brown Act. It'll be sent to Marcy if she doesn't already have it. I will send it to you when I get home. And we just ask you to take a really good look at it. Take 10 minutes. It's a 3-minute survey. And really think about not only what you might need in your district from your point of view, but what you think you might be able to share. And none of these nobody's name, nobody's gonna see anybody's names on them. So it really lets everyone feel free to really, if there's an idea that you've been thinking about for a few years, sounds silly to you, might be the cure to what ails all of us. So that's really why I'm here, to look you guys in the eye and ask you to please fill out this survey. What will happen, we're lagging a little bit, but we will have, I think, all of the visits to boards completed in the middle of October, and then we will compile the data. We'll take a first look at it, and if everybody agrees on everything, then we'll share that data. If not, we're looking at different ways to compile it and to see, where the ability to share is and where people are willing to. So that's kind of all of it. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a statement.
Okay.
I was on the E2 meeting this morning, which I was on the committee last year, but it was very difficult to make 7:30 meetings and get kids to school. Yeah. And I was senior driver, driving the freshmen to school. I was able to make it today. And just to be honest with you, when I started on the E2, I was more cautious. I come from Fairfax too, the home of the conspiracy theory, right? And at the end of the day, people are all constantly questioning a lot of consolidation in a lot of different ways. And as if there's something bigger that, we like the way we do things, we're okay. But you don't have to go that far to see how maybe fire consolidation makes a lot of sense, right? Because top-down infrastructure and how it would work, and that benefits all of us. I was really just able to open my mind a little bit more today and see how, not everything, because I don't know everything of what they're trying to consolidate, but certainly there are a lot of ways that we're leaning on Chris or our CBO to say, hey, can you find us a little, can you squeeze that thing a little bit more and give us a little something for that thing that Chris brings up and we love it, but we don't have it. I think this is the mechanism to start to point out people who do, we're 5 trustees, right? And we have a full-time staff and a full-time superintendent that are the professionals, but we're not the professionals. We just kind of make the decisions as a group. But having them tell us how, and my suggestion today in E2 was if the CBOs could all get together and show us where we could save, if he could come to us and say, hey, you guys, we could save $100,000 by doing this and joining with all these people, we would probably say yes if we trust you. So thank you for coming, because I will do the survey, especially because you decided to take the time to come here to tell us it was important. I will make sure I take the time to fill out the survey, and I think that in the meeting today, that's really was part of the big feedback, that they're counting on us elected trustees to independently give them some data so that they can come back to us with some answers that really might help.
And don't think that you as board members, your district. Even if you're brand new, you're far enough in to know your district. Each one of the 17 or 18, I can't remember how many we have, is completely different. And what we don't want to end up doing is forcing all of us to work together in a way we don't want to, because we all have independent budgets, we all have independent needs. What I'm asking and what we're asking is not to give up anything, but to give ideas and it would be ideal if we could all share great business managers, but we can't. It's not possible. These jobs, these specialized jobs, it took us a year to hire one, are less and less likely to have qualified candidates in them, like Chris, who is great. But we're running out of people coming into education at all, in all the categories. There's no big rush for anybody to be a teacher these days. You have to be really dedicated and really want to do it to be a teacher. How are we going to deal with that in districts with aging teachers? There are a lot of aging teachers in Marin County. So like I said, your ideas, even though you think that Chris has all the best ideas, you may have an idea that could make all of this much easier for all of us or some of us. So if you have any other feedback around this after you do the survey, please reach out to Tammy. keep calling her Tammy. She's at Tam, but her name is Emily.
Yolhorn?
Yes.
Yolhorn.
My coworker is named Tammy, so I keep doing that. Anyway, go ahead, Jen.
One other, because I was been on the E2 committee as well, and last year there had been some work done on documenting existing shared services. I think there was like even a chart.
It's called
that-
a heat map.
Yeah, there was a heat map chart that showed
And
where
that
services.
will play into
Okay.
what we're doing, but it has to be, you have to look at it every year and make
Mhm.
sure that, like, we shared a superintendent with Bolinas for a really long time.
Mhm.
We've gone to a different model and so have they, so.
And then the other thing that I was wondering is, I know that there's already, you had mentioned like Chris getting together with the, I know anecdotally, like the superintendents get together,
Right.
and I don't know how often or periodically, and then the CBOs get together. But I don't know all of the,
Right.
that also would probably be really interesting information along the lines of what's already happening to create those common pools of.
We went to the superintendents first, to their meeting first, to address this with them.
Yeah.
To get some idea of how to come to the boards with it.
What I also just meant in terms of report out back to us is to say, here's what you said, but here's also some
Right.
other ways in which
Right.
districts are working together. All the superintendents get together quarterly, and all the CBOs
Right.
get together monthly, or
But if the
whatever,
CBOs
whatever's all the existing
If the
stuff.
CBOs get together, and this is what I suggested today, they may not be getting together to discuss how they can collaborate as a bunch of CBOs to see if they can collaborate to save everybody money. That may not be the actual portal of the talking point.
Right.
They might just be discussing other risk evaluations or other stuff. If they come in with that as a check-in, like, it may be able to. I mean, I just don't see a downside.
No, not a downside. I'm just saying that we all all of our districts benefit from all the CBOs getting
Absolutely.
together,
Yeah.
because it's a
Absolutely.
better
Share
brain
best
trust
practices
and sharing of
is
expertise and
invaluable.
best practices and answering each other's questions. So we benefit from the fact
Yeah.
that they're all talking to each other and that kind of thing, which is great. So.
I just have a process question.
Uh-huh.
I'm just looking at the survey framework and the question that's been posed. You mentioned it's a 3-minute survey.
Mhm.
Is it manual input of just ideas, or is it multiple? I mean, what does it look like, and how is that
I
data
I haven't
analyzed?
looked at it in a while. I believe that it's a combination of both, but I think that ideas, it is a question of ideas,
Okay,
but
that are manually generated from us, obviously, because there are
well, and the
ideas.
original survey came out of that table exercise,
Mhm.
the way the questions were asked or addressed there. So
Okay.
we worked with county office to just trying to narrow it down to, I think it's 10 questions.
Okay. So as you analyze this data, and you're taking these individual ideas, you're going to be filtering those into categories and then determining what to go from there from a plan.
The first thing we're gonna do is take an overall look at it, and then we are going to plot the analyzation of it. There are different people who have different ideas of how to do that.
Mhm.
So the next big bite, and anyone that loves to do things like this, please get in touch with me. There are several people in different districts that have some great ideas about how to analyze data. I am more of a come and talk to you about giving us the data person, but we're still in the process of gathering. So what will happen is when that happens, we will report out to boards when we have everything completely in, and then we're talking about the next steps now in our meetings. We didn't expect it to take this long to visit all the districts is part of it. So,
Great.
any other questions?
And I'll just note, since we're on air, that there are no other participants here for public comment. Just so people are wondering why we're not going out for public comment, because we're just here with you.
This is all you get.
And we really appreciate you coming.
Okay, thank you for giving me the time to
Thank
speak
you.
to you. It's easy to get in contact with me through the Lagunitas School District on the website.
Great.
And like I said, I would love to hear any input by email, phone, smoke signal, anything that you want to add that you don't feel is on the survey. I would love to hear it.
Thanks for your time.
Great, thank you very much.
You guys have loved to stay, but I have 4 school board meetings, including my own this month, so.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank
Even
you
more
all.
than. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Marcy, so you'll you'll share the
Yeah,
link.
and
once
then
you
what I'll
get that.
do too is I'll include Denise's email address when I do get the survey, as well as the contact information for Emily Mulehorn in the town district, should you have any questions to be directed towards Emily.
Okay,
I was actually at that meeting where we did the table talk and the listings.
yeah, it was a good meeting. All right, recommended approval of resolution 032324 to adopt the Gann limit.
So thank you for the opportunity to discuss this evening. This is an item that comes to the board only once a year, and it always comes just before we do the unaudited actuals. And this is actually a document that is part of the unaudited actuals as well, but we're also required to do a resolution. And this happened back in 1979. The legislature put together this requirement, and it's based upon the legislator, Paul Gann. So he helped to draft the legislation. In essence, what they're doing is looking at how we spend dollars versus dollars come into the state. And so this is really a perfunctory document that we have to do and get sent to the state as part of their budget process as well.
Any
If there's any other questions.
questions from board members on this topic? And again, we don't have anyone in the audience to make public comment on this.
Chris answered my question earlier today, so
Great, thanks.
thank you.
Yeah, Chris, you've been, I mean, not just with this, but in general, like, if we all have individual technical questions, really appreciate you being helpful for us to be able to ask those ahead of these meetings. All right,
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 032324 to adopt the Gann limit.
I'll second that.
all right, motion and a second, Ryan?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Chris?
Aye.
And Daniel?
Hi.
Resolution passed. We now have recommended approval of the 2022-23 audited actuals financial report.
If I could put I should have picked it up when I was there.
Let me turn it on for you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to discuss the unaudited actuals this evening. And so what I have in this presentation is just a quick summary of our, the highlights of our financials. And so when looking at it, I'd like to show basically the unrestricted general fund. And this is actually showing kind of a multi-year projection, also based upon the information that we have in our adopted budget, just for the 3 years that include 22-23, plus looking back 1 year. And what's important to note is, as you're looking at this is again our unaudited, actual unrestricted balances. You'll see that we have revenues and expenses for each of those. But what's important to note also is the net increase decrease. You'll see that our fund balances are actually going up in 22-23. But if you look at the bottom, you'll see that the percentage is actually dropping. And part of that is, well, the single largest reason for that, the unaudited actual fund balance percentage is actually calculated based upon your total general fund expenses. So it includes the unrestricted and the restricted, and I'll show you both of those. But just looking at your expenses, because it's a percentage of your total expenses, you'll see that in 21-22 we had just over 12 million, and now we're at 14.5 million just on the unrestricted side. And so that increase also means that as your expenses increase, so too does that 3% calculation. And so, you know, you can have an increase, and I gave this example to Marcy earlier, and this is kind of oversimplified, but if you have $100 in expenses, 3% is $3. If you have $1,000 in expenses the next year, your reserve requirement goes up 10 times. So instead of being 3, it's 30. So you would have to spend less, $27, just to get your your reserve up to that. So that it's kind of that basis. So when looking at it, our actual reserve is 25.4%. Looking at our restricted balances, and this is the other component of our general fund, we do also see a large increase in our restricted balances. When looking at our total general fund balances, you'll note that it's approximately a $2 million increase, and that'll be shown on the next page. But the single largest portion of that in 22-23 is the almost $5 million that you see in net decrease in 22-23 on the restricted side. And those are programs that we're receiving the dollars in, and we haven't spent out those dollars yet. So it's things like the arts and music block grant and things of that nature. Also, any remaining COVID funds, etc. And so going back.
Is
Yes.
22-23 the last year of the COVID one-time funds?
We have additional years. It depends on the funding source. So the federal dollars pretty much are all going to be spent out by the end of next year. We have a large amount of them that were spent out at the end of this 22-23 school year. They had to be spent out by September. And then the remaining portion of the federal funds will have to be spent out by September of next year. So you'll see those come off of the books as well. But we also received a fairly large COVID amount on the state side this year. And so that we'll still have a couple of years to spend those down.
Chris, you may have answered this previously, but it's before I was here. Why did expenses jump up so much from the 21-22 to 22-23 year?
One of the single largest things is, well, the single largest thing is salary increases. So as we give those large salary retroactive adjustments, you see them.
Got it. So this would have been different than what we saw in the spring.
Correct.
Because those salaries weren't yet adjusted.
Correct. And so that's also leading to where we're at now versus then. So those percentages, although they're a little bit higher, you're going to start to see them tail down as we come into the new year. And so in essence, when looking at our total general fund, this is everything combined, so both unrestricted and restricted. And I had mentioned that we had a roughly $2 million increase in our fund balance in 22-23. You see that there in the middle. And that is, again, 1.4 million of that is, almost 1.5 is the restricted amount. And when looking at these numbers here, you'll see our ending balance is $10.1 million. Of that, 2.8 is your restricted balances, and then everything else is your unrestricted. So it's the 2.8, which is the 3% required minimum reserve that the state has for the school district based upon our size, and then the additional 7% that the district governing board has set as a policy, and then the rest is down at the bottom. So then the next thing to note is what our enrollment looks like. And here I've shown what our historical enrollment in our budget looks like. And you'll see that our enrollment is dropping. And the other thing I want to point out is that we went in with an enrollment estimated to be 1722. And the reason I'm going to show this is because it has greater impact as we look forward to the 23-24 year. So I just want to point these things out since we're already into our new school year. The first day of school, we reported to the County Office of Education an enrollment of 1727. And we actually had 1,700 kids show up that first day. On the sixth day, we showed 1724. Now, I had circled on that first enrollment slide, 1722, so we're just a little bit above where we thought we were going to be at budget. And we have 1,646 students in attendance. And the other reason I'm pointing this out is because keep in mind that 1,646 in attendance. This is the data that was reported in the Marin IJ article on 9/9. If you look at Ross Valley school districts, you'll see that it shows as enrollment, but it was actually our attendance. And so I just want to point that out because there is a large difference between enrollment and attendance. We're funded based upon attendance, but
So that's,
If you don't have kids that are enrolled, they can't come as well. And part of what has happened at the beginning of the school year is we've had a fairly significant amount of kids that have been out just due to illness at the beginning of the year.
Remind me again, the state, we're funded based on attendance, so number of kids attending. And these, the dates for these attendance numbers on the 1st and the 6th, does the state do like a rolling average? Do they do a snapshot day of attendance and then you get funded based on like a single point in time? Or how do they do their attendance number that they then pay you money for?
So we do 3 attendance reports throughout the year. We do one that is done at the beginning of January. We call it the P1 attendance report.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's your attendance basically through the middle of December.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our P2 attendance report that we do that is our attendance as of the end of March. That one's generally due around the middle of April. That is the most important in terms of how we're funded because the bulk of our attendance is actually based upon that attendance data.
And those numbers are a point in time snapshot number?
It's the average basically
It's
through
an
the end
average.
of March.
Okay,
So that's our P2.
got it,
And then we submit in July all of our annual attendance as well.
got it.
And there are components, small components that we get funded on based upon the annual attendance, but it's generally on the special education side because the special education
Right.
programs run a little differently than general attendance.
But the numbers that you're reporting on those state attendance reports are a calculated average daily kind of thing,
Correct.
not a point in time, like on this day there was 87 kids, if every other day was different, but it's an average daily attendance.
Yes, it's
Okay.
called average daily attendance.
Great, thank you.
And so then the other thing that I wanted to point out is just in general what our other funds came in at. And our first one is our cafeteria fund. And this particular year, we didn't have a contribution, which is maybe the first time in forever that has happened. Part of that is the new requirements to serve breakfast, so we have additional revenues up. But then the single largest reason for this is we haven't had staff to do this, and so other staff have been filling in. So as we start to fill those positions, I expect that to change and we'll have that contribution again.
As well as increase the amount of time for the positions.
That's another component of it. So that will happen, but this particular year it did not. Deferred maintenance, we have $165,000 remaining in our deferred maintenance fund, and that's a fund that is no longer being contributed to. It's going to eventually go away. And all of those dollars moving forward will come directly out of the general fund, out of the routine restricted maintenance account, which was funding the deferred maintenance program. But again, those are for deferred maintenance projects. The next one is our capital facilities fund. We have just under $176,000, and those are funds that come into the district when people pull permits to do construction. So if it's a new home or business, they would pay for the entire square footage. If it's above 500 square foot, they would only pay for that. If it's less, they wouldn't pay. But in essence, this is used if we're growing as a district. So it would be used to house students. And then Fund 35 is, here we have it listed as state bond fund. It's really the modernization funds, and we just have basically some leftover dollars, really small amount. And then Fund 40, also a really small amount, and it's only $307. And this is our special reserve for capital facilities. If the district board decided they wanted to put dollars in out of the general fund, they could contribute to this, but you can see that there's nothing there.
do you know where that revenue came from this year?
It probably came directly out of the general fund at one time. Right now, the revenue that's there, the $6, is just interest income.
Okay.
So, yes, I do know. There's no other activity in.
The $6 charge?
Yeah, and no other activity out with it.
Yeah.
But it was 100% interest income. So, with that was a quick presentation.
It's amazing how much this makes sense to you once you've seen 6 of them. But it's actually very easy to follow. So I appreciate the way you put this together. It's very clear.
And it's also very, like you've said, very helpful that the format gets repeated each time we see
Yeah.
it, so that you're like, okay, this is the enrollment format that we saw last time, and this is the.
Was this just all the data for all the schools, or is this just, are we missing any schools on this data?
That was all of the districts that the County Office of Education provided to from an independent journal.
Which is what they used as the basis for the article.
Right.
And they reported it all, as Chris mentioned, as enrollment.
As enrollment,
but it
not
was
actual
really, at least for us,
attendance.
I can't speak for other school districts. I just know for our districts, since we do receive day 1 report from Pam Cooney in our business department, and day 6 and day 10, and she goes then and does it monthly for us. So we know exactly how many kids we have enrolled and then how many kids were in attendance on those days. And then if we wanted to pull up a report in between, we could do that too. But
Okay.
but that's what
Well, and
we know.
I mean, it's helpful to see, it does, on the form that you fill out, clearly there's a column for attendance
Yeah.
and a column for enrollment,
Enrollment,
so
yeah.
we're providing them with both data points when I'm assuming it's the same form for everybody.
I would assume, yeah.
And I will say that having spoken to the County Office of Education and been in other districts as well, one of the challenges that the districts have is at the beginning of the school year, you might have kids that you've enrolled, but they don't show up, and eventually you're going to drop them because they've moved in the interim. And so that's part of the reason that the county provides that information as attendance, but it should be noted as attendance and not as enrollment, because there is a difference.
Gotcha.
Chris, can I ask a question about the capital facilities funds? Where does that money actually go? Like, what part of our budget does that go into?
They're actually separate funds altogether, so they're not part of the general fund. That's why I've shown them as.
Got it. So then what do we use that money for?
So like the deferred maintenance fund, for example, we would use that if we need to do a new roof.
Right, sure.
That type of thing. And so in terms of the Fund 25,
Yeah.
which is probably what you're asking, you could use that if we started to see a shortage in facilities, you could use it to help pay for things like modular buildings or new
Okay.
construction to house more children. So it could be used for.
But it's
those types of
specifically
things.
around that, like
Correct.
if there's an increase of,
And that particular fund you can't use for like a new roof,
got it.
because that's just repairing what your existing is. It has to go to help generate additional spaces for
Got it,
children.
it's interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we don't have anyone in the audience for public comment. And any other questions? This is not a action item.
It is.
Oh, it is an action item. Oh, right, okay. So it is an action to approve the unaudited financials. Okay. Any other conversation and questions before we move into the action?
I just wanted to say thank you to Chris, because every time I open these up and look at them, I'm like, oh, it's 121 pages. Okay, here I go. I just think you have to produce that and you have to edit them when they change them in June or whatever. So thank you. I know it's a lot of work. That said, unless anyone else had something else to say, I move that we approve the 2022-23 unaudited actuals financial report of RVSD.
And a second?
Motion and a second. Rachel?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you again. When do we see the next one?
The next one is in 3 months. In essence, every 3 months. So the middle of December, you'll get our first interim budget.
Merry Christmas.
Very good.
And other holidays.
Here's a lot of reading.
And other holidays.
All right, and on to item number 4, which is the recommended approval of the corrected 2022-23 salary schedule for the classified confidential executive assistant position.
All right, thank you. So you may just remember this because it wasn't too long ago that you did approve the total compensation package for our classified confidentials employees. And so as I just put a reminder up here of exactly what has already been approved. And so all that came to light was a realization that with the increase of holidays, so with the Juneteenth holiday being added, Chris just forgot to add one more paid day. So there's still the same number of work days, still the same number of vacation days. This is just the increase of the one holiday, which did get, as part of the total compensation package, it is built into the budget, but the salary schedule just wasn't updated. And so we're bringing back to you tonight the corrected salary schedule that just shows the increase of one additional paid day, and this is only on the executive assistant position, which is the position Teresa holds. Any questions?
No questions. Again, my only appreciation is that you all bring back even something as small, even something that needs to be corrected like this, as opposed to like, oh, we're just gonna bury it in the next thing that came here, like put it into some bigger thing because, oh, it's too small to even bring up, and then we have to say we're correcting it. I just appreciate that it's like, oh, we didn't do this, so now we're gonna do it. Great, fine, move on. And you took the time to do it, and that we as a district are okay with that, so thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the corrected 2023 schedule or salary schedule for the classified confidential executive assistant position.
I'll second.
All right, motion and second. Ryan.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Shelley. Aye. Rachel.
Aye.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, so now we have consent actions. We have 6 items on consent. Were there any questions or issues with any of these consent items? Most of them are fairly standard, kind of regular type of things to be doing.
I was happy to see Walker Creek on there.
I was just going to say, he's like, hey, we're back to approving the field trips. We're in that mode again, which is awesome. Yeah. All right. And again, we don't have anyone in the audience for public comment on this. So,
I move consent for all items under F.
motion for consent.
Second.
Second. Rachel.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Daniel.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Shelley. Aye. Consent is moved. And on to board business. Committee updates, reports, announcements from trustees. Does anyone?
I went to Manor and Brookside's back to school nights. Thought they were fantastic. Amanda at Brookside is doing a great job. Miss Wagner, great energy, connects with the parents very well and the students.
That's great.
I was thinking that if there's a way that we kind of organize the presentations for the parent club and yes, to have it consistent in each school. That's just a recommendation I have because I learned a lot by going to the Manor presentation and I used that for the Brookside presentation. So just that consistency around these organizations, and I know I'm going to talk about it at the subcommittee meeting, or the roundtable meeting when I go. It's just helpful and it's shared services.
Yeah.
We don't need to have 10 different people creating the same slide deck just from different points of view. So I'll bring that up when we meet, whenever we meet next.
You're part of that subcommittee.
Yeah.
We will be talking about tonight, so.
I was going to say that's also helpful for the Yes Foundation committee
Yes.
I'm on, because if you have one simple thing that goes to all 5 schools,
Yeah.
that would help a
Well,
lot.
and Chelsea did a lot of work. She's the executive director for YES. She did a lot of work to create what was common across all of the school sites. And tomorrow night we have our White Hill back to school night. But the commonality was a slide that had on one side the yes, and then she worked with each of the parent clubs to come up with what is under each school's parent club slide. Those were different for each of the schools because as we know, our parent clubs have the different as we know, our schools have different flavors and what they work on and what their parent clubs pay. There are some commonalities. So that part was standard. But yes, Daniel, I too noticed that the slide decks themselves, some schools had different elements in it. And that is one of the elements that, or one of the ideas that Roundtable started to work on last school year was the consolidation and the sharing of ideas and the workload so that not each of the parent clubs was creating it themselves because it's a heavy lift and these are all volunteer
Well, it's just from like
groups.
spell check and the similar font, like all that stuff. It's just one person just needs to, hey, here's the format.
Mm-hmm.
Add what you did for Brookside, or add what you did at Manor, add what you did at Hidden Valley. You know,
Yeah.
add to it. Anyway, they were great.
It was a great start because it's the most common of those
ever been.
messages
Yeah.
that we, that was the start, because it was the first time we had that common of a message at between our Yes Foundation and the parent clubs, and they spoke together as a group. So they were up there right with each other at the schools. It's so fun.
And the new breakouts worked out well as parents that have more than one sibling or one child at a school, you could go to multiple sessions, which was really nice this year than in years past. So I thought they were well organized, good energy.
Yeah.
By the way, if the White Hills tomorrow, I'm gonna go. I have a kid to school. It is. I remember the last years I go to that. Don't miss that. If you want to really go see what's happening at your school, don't miss that.
Yeah.
And anybody listening on this that wants to really get a real good taste of what that's going on in our district, go to that thing tomorrow night and just step into any classroom. It's amazing. And last year was I actually took notes. And then I read all through my monthly notes of last year what I did, and then it said go to this year's, even though Kaylin was going to be gone out of the school. It's just a great snapshot of what's happening, and just for yourself, you can actually kind of be incognito if you want to, and really learn a ton of stuff. And it's not about you as a board member; it's really just about seeing the energy, the students, and the teachers all putting this big thing out there. I got a lot out of it, so I'd recommend we do that. I'll roll into my report. I did go to the E2 this morning. It's a wonderful board time of 7:30 in the morning. It was right on line with what we heard today. I don't have to repeat everything I said, but I was very skeptical going onto the E2 in the beginning last year. I think I think there are ways that we can really try to pick what works for us, maybe what doesn't work for us as well, but really having an ability to kind of look at how other people are doing things when it comes to trying to not reinvent the wheel just kind of like what you're saying right along these levels. So I think we should be open to ways to do that, cautious of infrastructure changes to the government aspect, which is I'm very skeptical about how they might want to, make less people at the top from that type, but for the services that we use. And for example, in my breakout groups today, we talked about the lunches, and I know we talked about that here, and that, to hear that they said, oh, there's not that many choices that can, and here we are in the land of milk and honey, and we don't have good food choices that we would maybe want to choose because there are a lot of people that really can't meet the state mandates to make it work and efficient. It wasn't just us.
From all the other districts.
Yeah, and so the guy in my group, the superintendent out in Lagunitas, was saying that, hey, they have this, but they need more of these subsidizes and the money, and it was really good to see that these districts are just like us, and they have a lot of the similar problems. But if we can find ways, and my suggestion was to send the CBOs to tackle that topic of how can they make a portal so that if there's a question that we have as a board, we can send him into the CBO portal to see how other people might be able to do it, to see if there's information there that he can then report back and say, hey, we might be able to join this group and save money in doing this as an idea. The day started early today. And I sat in through the JLAC, but I wasn't on the committee. It just went right into it. So I'll stay out of that.
Were you in the JLAC?
Yeah.
So, I was in the JLAC. Do you want to do the report?
I joined that a couple minutes late also. I've been off today. So I joined when they were talking about the food services.
Yeah.
So
There's a good interface overlap between the E2 and the JLAC, because the JLAC then looks at similar issues from the legislative side, which a lot of, like the food service thing is a legislative mandate, and so a lot of those shared service issues often come up because or transportation, food service, those kinds of things are the ELOP, those are mandated things, and how's everybody dealing with the mandates? And then there's an opportunity to go to the lobbyists that we work with as a county to say, hey, can you give the legislature feedback? This isn't working the way you thought it was going to work out. Maybe some changes can be made and lobbied for. So it's helpful that there's that connection with the lobby group to do that. Was there anything else that you thought of or heard because there was, transportation was one that came up. I don't know if it came up before.
I think it came up before.
Oh, it came up before, because a lot of districts are having transportation challenges as well.
They were talking about the different, or actually maybe it was afterwards, they were talking about the different size buses. If you had a 10-passenger van, you can have a different rule of who can drive.
Yeah. And Tam even brought up, issues of having to consolidate classrooms because you couldn't get students from Molinas I was like, it was just the ripple effect of transportation conversation. So again, the feedback to our legislative analysts and the lobbyists was, let the legislative folks know that this isn't quite working out. Just making it a mandate doesn't help make it actually work. In lots of the situations. So that's kind of helpful to have it back to back in that way, because you can kind of take some stuff in the conversation in the E2 and then roll it into the legislative. But we're all also getting, you send out, so the legislative folks send kind of an update, rundown of the Ball Frost group, and then I think we all at least get a copy of that. So even if you're not on the committee, you can kind of get up to date. And they've said, even if you're not on the committee, like if you get that email and there's a topic on that email that you're particularly interested in, you're welcome to join the meeting. Except, do we have a problem if there's more than 3 of us?
No, because you're not making any decisions or doing, it's like attending a conference.
Got it, okay. Yeah, so if you see something in that email that comes out that you're particularly interested in, you're welcome to join that next legislative meeting.
Awesome.
And that was the only one I had. Do you have any?
Yeah, I had a yes update. So they have filled their board. They've got a full operating board now. So that was great news. They, hopefully everyone has seen the yes video that they had done by a parent at Hidden Valley. It's lovely, it's very sweet. They've been showing it at back to school night, I believe. So that's been going really well, and hopefully everyone shared it on social media. They did a popsicle incentive party at Hidden Valley to try and increase participation in family donations. And they went from 19 families about to like 72 donating. So that was great. They're going to try and roll that out to the other schools to try and... Oh, they have?
Yeah, Brookside did it well, and they got over 40 families to donate. So they're having a popsicle party Friday.
That's great. So yeah, they're trying to do that to try and just stir up interest
And just, they've already raised over 100,000 more this time of year, and they attribute it to the Impopsicle campaign. Impopsicle. Nothing is Impopsicle.
It's impossible.
That's awesome. Okay, so they're doing some events coming up in September. They're kind of knocking them out. They're doing an information call night, which is not so much a ask for money, but it's more like, hey, new families to the district, this is what we do with YES and how amazing it is, and kind of let them know like what we do for the students with YES. And so it's just kind of a way to contact people and kind of introduce them to YES. They're doing a Live on the Avenue music series. Victoria George and the High Lonesome group are going to be playing on September 22nd. And so there's like a bake sale. They're looking for bakers to donate, or people to donate local goods. She's donating money to YES for that. Creekside is having a Tommy Breeze YES collaboration again, like they did last year. So that's on September 26th in the evening. They did it last year and it was very popular. There was a big crowd and it was a lot of fun. You could get a YES logo hat from Tommy Breeze and you could see him embroider it like on the spot. So it was kind of fun. The YES Theater at White Hill registration is closed. They are doing Shakespeare this year. So that's exciting. I'm kind of interested to see how that goes. And I think that was everything. So I don't know if there's anything else to add, but Marcy had the numbers.
Chelsea is coming now to the first of our administrative team meetings a month. She's coming, and other members, either Pratik, Donnie, or my gosh, I just lost her name. Another, the co-chairs. Forgot her name. Anyway, they're coming, so they were there this week with us, and so that's how come I have those up-to-date numbers. And then if you noticed as you came in, there are some, so what Chelsea does is from the theater program, the play marquee, if you will, they get framed and then they get distributed to the schools. She's been doing this for the last 4 years.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Good job, Chelsea.
They forgot those, so we'll make sure they get them next Monday.
Marcy and I attended Friday, September 8th, Safe Routes to Schools update. Nothing earth-shattering to announce, except they did do a data debrief where they broke down each school site and talked about the demographics of the kids, where they lived in relation to the school. as well as a breakdown on how they got to school, whether it was walk, bike, other, which is scooting, which falls into a walking category, perhaps the younger kids, carpooling, driving bus. I think some of the interesting takeaways was really going school by school and seeing the impact or lack thereof that some of these schools have. And also the campaign, the walk and roll campaign that's actually really standing out and creating some impact, especially the schools like Brookside. Hidden Valley's an outlier. A lot of people still drive there. But other than that, it was a productive meeting, just talking back and forth, I think, amongst those of us. We got called out a lot about, what we thought of things. But it was just good to see the numbers broken down. Wasn't able to stay for the latter part of the meeting, which I think some people were raising some routing questions, tunnel perhaps, I think, in Fairfax. But I had to get off at that point. From the valley, okay. Yeah, I had to get off at that point, but I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, Marcy.
Well, one of the things they attribute to the campaign with the Safe Routes to School is how involved the school, between the parent club and the parent volunteers and the principal, is in promoting the safe routes. And so where they had the higher data, because they talked about not just our schools, but schools in the Ross Valley. And so there's some other schools that, of course, are in San Anselmo and Fairfax that aren't part of our school district, and they had the numbers for those schools as well. And so what their takeaway was, when you have involvement from your school, you tend to get higher participation rates, and the percentages look a lot better. The questions were good, though, because one of the questions that came up is why students who live or who attend Hidden Valley may live over off of San Francisco Boulevard. So I was able to go back and explain kind of the history of the way that the district broke down the demographics and what
Shift
yeah,
in 2009 from the overcrowding.
exactly. Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah, and that is so. And then
crazy.
it was also it was, and that that's, and so probably one of the most painful conversations you can ever have in a school district. One of them is talking about boundary. I call it reboundarizing. And that can be one of the most emotional and heated topics that a school district can never have. So I do remember those days when our district went through that. And then the other part too that contributes is the geographic physical layout of our streets. We have hills, so there's also for a lot of the kids, it doesn't make a lot of sense you can't take your scooter down Woodside Drive as an example. It would be very dangerous to do so. And so at what point do parents actually park a little closer to school and then they roll? And then one of the other takeaways was, depending on where you reside and where your child's school is, you may be choosing to drive your child because you're on your way to work.
Right.
So it's on your way, and it can be difficult for families to bike with their kids to work and then have to go back home to get their vehicle to then drive to work. So there were a lot of understandings, but also conversations. They were good ones around what can impact the ability to have even more participation in the Safe Routes to School program. But the deep dive of it that was really helpful is to see that, to learn, as I didn't know, that Safe Routes began at Manor School.
Yes. Yeah.
Didn't know that. And so for the County of Marin.
Yeah.
So that was great to know. Julia, you probably already knew that, didn't you?
My kids were there.
Exactly. So so it was great to know that this huge organization started right here in Ross Valley.
Did they have that as one of the questions in terms of do you carpool, do you bike, do you scooter, do you drop your kids off on the way to work? To be able to distinguish between, if you drive, is it just to school and back home, or is it like on your way?
These are on the tally days, so there's like the first Wednesday of the month is your walk, ride, and roll day. And so they do take the data points on those days. And then they do surveys out to our parents. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know
Do you all remember how
I don't know if that was if you're commuting on the way to work and you just drop your
It
kids off.
wasn't broken out to that granular level, but it was assumed that a large population was a part of that.
Yeah, and then there's one of the gentlemen who is the volunteer for one of our schools. He spoke about how when he was the tallier, he would literally see people park across the street and their kid would walk across the crosswalk and then get counted for walking to school.
Start somewhere.
Roll through the door.
Rolled in, yeah.
All right, any other committees or announcements? Nope, all right. Let's keep going then with, we've got our meeting minutes for August 30th, 2023.
Anybody have any questions
Any other
about
questions about that?
No.
No.
Motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from August 30th, 2023 for the board.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All right, Chris?
Yeah, aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. All right, and then our revised calendar of meetings for this year.
All right, so the reason that I'm bringing this back to you all is that Archie Williams changed its graduation date, and so they're having it on when Whitehill had scheduled their promotion, and so we for obvious reasons cannot have our 8th grade promotion on the same day as Archie's graduation. And so in looking at dates that Whitehill, because it also would have a domino effect for our elementary schools to hold their 5th grade promotion dates, is taking a look at the Wednesdays in June, because that's when we're holding our board meetings, and also what makes sense for Whitehill to hold its promotion date. So currently we have a regular board meeting scheduled on June 12th. That is the date that Whitehill is looking to hold their promotion date. If they were to try to hold it on a different date, it would impact our need to then shuffle all of our elementary promotion dates. So looking to bring back the calendar to you this evening and looking at the month of June with all of the ways that Wednesdays look, it doesn't make sense to try to find another Wednesday in June. As an example, we have the meeting on currently scheduled on the 12th, and then our next meeting at the end of the month is the 27th. We need time between the LCAP, which we bring to you, and the budget proposal at the end of May. We need time to take feedback and input to get them finalized. So it wouldn't make sense to have the meeting be just 1 week later than the May meeting, and then we're not going to hold it on Juneteenth. And so looking at, there wasn't another day in June, another Wednesday in June to put the meeting, and so therefore the recommendation is to not have a regular meeting, to just remove June 12th as a regular meeting. And then of course, if we need to schedule another meeting, we can always schedule a special, and it can be on a different day of the week. So that's just looking to revise the regular meeting schedule to remove June 12th.
We have to take action on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So moved.
And second.
Motion and second. Ryan?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Daniel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Rachel?
All right,
All right.
awesome, this is great. Now we know that we have, one element of our continued calendar work is we can finalize promotion dates, so thank you
Yes.
so very much.
Yes, please do. All right. Everyone will be appreciative of it getting all finalized early on. And now we've got our committee assignments. So we have before us our committee list
Yep, so there, up on Board Docs is a review of all of the committee descriptions, and then the current committee assignments that you did last school year in 22-23. And then there was another sheet up there, which is basically a blank sheet. What I did on this is I removed whether or not there was a primary and an alternate, because you can have up to 2 regular attendees on each of the committees. You may want to designate yourself as a primary and an alternate. So I thought, let's leave it off. And then depending on how you all want to roll with doing committee assignments, then we'll just add them on based on whatever you all prefer to do. So all of the committees, district and county, are listed here. And you want to look at the prior. Okay. Yep. All right. So Teresa, would you mind just opening the one that had the 22-23 committee assignments? And that way, if anybody needs to refresh what you're on or other folks are on. So what we're doing today is the committee assignments for 23-24, and then we will hold our annual organization meeting at a board, I think it's December 13th board meeting. We'll do that. That's where we choose the, or you all select your president and your clerk and your MCSBA representative. So tonight's just the committee assignments.
Well, I'll start out. I'll keep what I have. District facilities, DFAC. I'll also stick on the E2 now that I can actually show up consistently to that at 7:30 a.m. So just put those on my list. I can also work on the policy update committee as needed. If there's, I mean, I don't have to do anything that anybody else wants to do. Don't let me steal your thunder. If you're dying for it, speak up.
Rachel, do you remember, the one question I had is, the 3 of us, Chris, you and I, had been doing like a 3-person something with the
Parent garden.
with the equity committee. Were you still interested in?
I'm still interested, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still active.
Right.
And we'll stay on that.
Because I'm happy to just be an alternate on that. If the 2 of you want to take the lead on that, then I'd rather be an alternate.
Okay. I'll stick with what I already have. And I will also join the board policy update committee.
Okay.
So I've got parent equity task force, board policy update committee, the joint, safe routes to schools, and the Marin County School Boards Association. Yeah. And what is the wellness committee again? Remind me.
I don't know.
Hasn't
You're
been
getting all
active in a
banged
long
up. I don't
time.
know if you're ready for that.
Yes.
So I was,
Sorry.
Never mind.
I was at the last one, it was like 2018, I believe, or 2017. It was a long time ago.
Mhm.
There was a lot of talk about like mental health options for kids and kind of like finding supports for them in schools and just various avenues there. I think there were some of the social workers that we have, or a psychologist, a school psychologist who were there who kind of spoke. There was also talk about like the food and the, I think at that point there was like choice lunchers. There was like another food thing, but basically it kind of talked about just various aspects of health in schools.
And it is something that looking to reconstitute, so Eric is working on dates to get that going. So it is going to be reconstituted beginning this school year.
Okay. I'll do that too.
And I'm fine sticking with the ones I had. I think I had the DLAB, which was the first one. And then I was on the wellness committee as well, which is fine. And then the yes board, unless somebody else wants to do the yes.
Were there any of the county ones did I miss, or those are all the district, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they're all district ones.
Right.
Who was on GPA? Was that you, Ryan? The joint?
Chris handles COP.
Chris is on GPA, that's right. Okay, Chris is on.
Yeah, I'm good with the roundtables, the superintendent's council, and the JLAC.
Okay.
And then if somebody needs to be on Golden Bell, I can do that as well.
We haven't had a trustee from our school district as long as I've been on Golden Bell, which is at least 12 years. And the other trustees who are on from other districts love to have trustees on. So if you want to join, that would be great.
Sure.
Okay, and then we can talk
We heard
about
tonight.
Yeah.
That she loved doing it.
For 100 years. I don't know if I can
for
be on for 100 years,
so.
I'm not committing for 100
You're not
years.
committing for 100?
No.
That would be great. Yeah, to have you join. Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
And then I will stay as Ryan's backup on the E2 because I am not a morning person and I know you are, but I will do my best.
Yeah, that was just absurd though. When I signed up, I didn't know that the time was 7:30. I mean, literally 7:30, everybody's on. And I'm like, how do you get kids? How do you do that? But I guess that's the only time they can squeeze it in. But
Yeah. And I think they've done the back-to-back of the E2 and the JLAC
Yeah.
for years, and so, because the JLAC's at 8:30. So I'll stay with the other ones that I had then, which is the JLAC and the MCSBA, County School Board Association. And then the superintendents of the round table, MCSBA,
There it is.
which is another one of those, because it really only has like 4, it's not like a monthly meeting or anything like that, it only has a few meetings a year, and they're often like dinners and conversation things, and everybody's welcome to go to them, and you'll all get invited, yeah, so we'll all get invited to those as well. So.
Yeah, they have more meetings this year than they did last. And I think it's probably coming out of COVID as they're getting back in the swing of their meeting routines.
And it's both the JLAC and the School Boards Association overlap, and if anybody is interested in doing the legislative day to Sacramento, I really enjoyed doing that last year, so.
Do you know
I'm
what
not
that
sure
is?
which
Yes,
day.
it's on here listed as February 14th.
So right here.
Valentine's Day.
Day, seriously.
Oh, lovely.
I'll let my wife know.
So romantic.
Hey, I'm gonna be in Sacramento that day, honey.
And it's usually a bus that we leave from some location in Marin County and then go to Sacramento. So everybody from the county who's going goes on a bus together.
And last time, the thing that was very cool is there are youth board members in the high school districts, and they came with us too. So there was about 6 young people from the high schools, and they all came on the bus with us, and that was actually really cool to get to meet them and talk to them and kind of get to spend the day hearing their input during the legislative stuff, and then back and forth on the bus. So, am I missing anything?
It looks like everything. I just want to run down from the top, and then this time I would like to go through if both are primaries or one is an alternate or that kind of thing. So for DLAC, we have Rachel and Ryan, both primaries. Would you both like to attend, or one attend only if the other is unable?
Ryan or Daniel? Ryan.
Rachel and Ryan is who I have for that. Rachel and Ryan.
Primary or backup?
I'll be the backup on that.
Okay, so Ryan is the alternate, okay. And then for DFAC, that's an as-needed committee. If we happen to reconstitute that, then that would be Ryan. So you'd be the primary on that. Any others for DFAC? Okay, thank you. And then for Parent Guardian Equity Task Force, we have Chris and Rachel as primary, Shelley as alternate. Board Policy Update Committee, Chris. Any others interested?
Ryan was saying.
Ryan?
Are these meeting dates solid, this Parent Equity Task Force? We actually going to have a meeting?
Did I put them in there? Sorry, I may have forgotten to remove them from
Mine says-
last year. They're not set yet. We have
Mine
our,
says TBD, the bigger one.
this is last year.
That's last year. Okay,
Sorry, yeah, what you have
I have it in front of me and I'm.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, I thought I
was
put a
like, I can
TBD on
done
that,
this,
did I?
You did.
I
You did,
Okay,
you
great.
did, sorry,
Okay,
I'm
good.
just
All
like
right,
double tasking.
got myself confused. Okay, so then, so Chris and Ryan for board policy. Any, both primaries?
I'm happy to be a primary,
Great.
sure.
Yeah, we just want to get it noted so that we know,
Yes.
like, if there's ever an absence. Okay, so primaries. Roundtable is Daniel and Shelley.
Yeah, I'll just be the primary. You've got enough to do.
Okay.
Okay, you want to be alternate,
Great.
Shelley? Okay. And then for Soups Council, the same. And then for Wellness, we have Chris and Rachel, both primaries.
Sure.
Great. And then for Yes Foundation, Rachel. Anybody else? All right, county-wide committees, the E2, we have Ryan and Shelley as alternate. Golden Bell, Daniel. JIPA is Chris. JLAC, Daniel and Shelley, both primaries. Or did one
I'm fine
of you?
with that.
Yep, okay, great. MCSBA, Chris and Shelley. Both primaries. And then Safe Routes to School, Chris. All right, we got them all then. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You didn't even have to arm wrestle.
Well, there's a lot of room really in here
Yes.
to have,
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice that if you're interested in something, you can.
And I
It's
just,
nice how it works out where there's somebody who's interested in everything, which is nice.
it's great. And also to think about, not every school district may have Board of Trustees who serve on district-wide committees as well. And so it's really important. It just shows how involved you all are and care so much about this district and the education of our students that, and you give a lot of time. So this is a real commitment on each of your parts to be here for the Ross Valley School District. So thank you so much.
And with that, we can roll right into your superintendent updates.
All righty, let's start with Chris Carson. Anything from, you've got a lot of departments there with you.
I do. Mine is going to be fast though. When it comes to opening school, we have an entire division that does the lion's share of the work in preparing at the school sites, and that's our district maintenance and operations and our custodial staff, making sure that our schools are, that the classrooms are deep cleaned, the restrooms are deep cleaned, the grounds are taken care of, that we've painted the areas that need to be painted, that we've made the fascia repairs, doing roofing repairs, gutters, etc. And so I do want to say thank you to the staff directly for all of their hard work during this summer in preparing, and also let the board know that at our next meeting that Des McKissock, our director of M&O, is going to be coming in and providing an overview of everything that he has, in his division, has done this summer. And so it should be pretty informative. And I just wanted to let you know, and again, say thank you to the staff.
Thank you. Anything else, Chris, for tonight? Thank you. And Eric Sable, Director of Student Services.
Yeah, thank you. Let's see. We discussed the relaunching of the Wellness Committee, so that'll be exciting. We anticipate probably November. So we'll get that date set really soon and just establish the committee members, and the board policy 50/30 provides real clear guidance on membership and purpose. And also we are looking to have a mental health component as well to this committee's work. Today was a monthly special ed directors meeting facilitated by our county SELPA director. And just in that conversation around shared services is also shared knowledge. And, all of us have the same challenges. And also there's a lot of great ideas to leverage with each other. So that was always a very valuable space for us to help each other in how we're delivering services and how we're articulating our programs. One thing that is cool, it happens every year, is dedication to special education. Does a lot of fundraising to provide classroom grants to special education teachers. And those are grants of up to $2,500. And ever since I've been here, we've had multiple recipients that have enhanced their classroom spaces for the benefit of their students. And this year is actually something new, that general education teachers are also eligible to apply for these classroom grant dollars if they focus on inclusion of students with disabilities in the general education setting. And so I'm starting in 2 weeks at Whitehill with kind of doing a roadshow presentation on what's going on in special education, some new landscapes in law and our practice as a district, and inclusion actually is a big topic that we're going to cover. So the invitation will go out to all teachers in the district, special ed, gen ed, to participate. And we actually, on that topic, have sent out a parent survey for parents of children with disabilities in the district to get input so that we as a team can reflect on the job we're doing, look at areas of strength, areas of growth, and something that we're excited to build on. And of course that also is a part of our growing and continued efforts to engage our families, inform our LCAP, and to just be better for the sake of kids. Speaking of attendance, September, guess what September is? It is National School Attendance Awareness Month. I know you knew that. And guess what? Trending across the board, attendance is still really poor. So we're working on messaging. I've already been working with Chris on putting something together that will come out in our updates, which is to be published really soon. And really just talking about how, first and foremost, from a learning perspective, from a wellness perspective, we want kids in school as much as possible. And of course, as we've discussed here a lot, there's also the implication around lost funding when we have kids that are chronically absent. A couple of things on the our multilingual learner front is the initial LPACs are underway for those children that are new to us and haven't taken it before. And so the team is hard at work to deliver those. That's supposed to happen in the first 30 days of school to get that baseline for their English proficiency. And then day 3 of the training for EL Achieve, and Julia did a tremendous amount of work to lock in this wonderful curriculum. And really it's kind of like a first for us as a district, and something we're hoping that other districts follow suit on, to provide much more of a solid foundation for curriculum for our multilingual learner teachers to share with their students. So I will pass the gavel at that.
Thank you. And our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Julia?
Yes, I too really enjoyed attending back to school night. I was able to go to Manners and Brookside's, and actually got to help out in the classroom at Brookside where we have a teacher on maternity leave. And so that was a lot of fun. And just always lovely to see how lively it is and how excited our parents are and excited our teachers and principals are. A great feeling on our campuses. And I know Wade Thomas had theirs as well, but because Brookside and Wade Thomas were the same evening, I was only able to be at Brookside. I have been spending a lot of time in TK classrooms, and we, like all districts in California, are growing our TK program in terms both of really the number of students that are in our program, because the age cutoff is changing each year by 2 months. And then also in terms of really looking at our instructional program. We have an amazing group of TK teachers that are working together. They have a release day coming up where they're looking at assessments, but also talking a lot just about what instruction looks like in TK. There's a really strong emphasis on play-based curriculum. And so also we have grant money from the state for supplies and different things, and we really want to think about what does a TK classroom need, because it's not a kindergarten classroom. It really is a different program and is becoming its own grade level. So that's just been exciting work, and it's also work that our instructional coaches are supporting. They've organized a training for our new TK teachers on their ELA curriculum, English Language Arts curriculum, that's going to take place this week on Thursday. And then also our instructional coaches, along with our intervention teachers, have been administering our reading screener to all of our first graders and all of our second graders. The screener is called Dibbles, and it looks at all different elements of reading instruction, and then it provides very clear feedback on kids' strengths and any areas of growth for students, and also can kind of flag a student as possibly needing further screening for dyslexia. It's not a dyslexia screener, but it gives you really good information. And they are working now, the instructional coaches are working with principals on how to find time for them to disseminate all of the information and just do a big data dive with our first and second grade teachers so that they can really use that information to inform their instruction. So that's also relatively new for us and really exciting work. Also, our principals have been holding these meetings that we're calling, it's a part of our MTSS, our multi-tiered system of supports, and the meetings are called Meeting of the Minds. And so principals are meeting with all of their teachers and talking about kids. And at those meetings is the intervention and English language development teacher, and then also sometimes other school personnel as needed. But they're looking at data and looking at what kinds of support kids are needing, which kids are they maybe concerned about, and what, all teachers provide differentiated support, and we call that Tier 1 support. It's support for all students. But within that classroom, when you're teaching your math standards or your English language arts standards, what are these different kinds of scaffolds that kids may need, some groups of kids. And so how do you figure all of that out? What can you try in the classroom? And it's kind of going through a cycle of inquiry. So those are taking place, and our principals are really excited about that work. And it's just wonderful to see our multi-tiered system of supports really hitting the ground and making a difference for our kids. And I think that is it for me.
Thank you.
Still working on hiring. It's an ongoing process, and we are making progress, slowly but surely, in filling all of our positions.
Thank you. And just, we already covered Safe Routes to School, so I won't go over that one again, but we did that under the trustee report outs. And I also attended all the back to school nights, and it was difficult to try to get from Brookside to Wade Thomas, but I did manage to get there in time to hear part of the full school gathering welcome at Wade Thomas. And it's great just to see the wonderful messages and consistency across all sites, talking about and focusing on their equity and their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and the activities and events they do, and those kinds of things to help, as we started to work on a couple of years ago, bring it closer to the classroom and in the schools, our work on equity. And then, as Ryan talked about earlier, White Hills Back to School Night is tomorrow night. So if any of you wanted to go at 6 to 8 p.m., the full school gathering is just 10 minutes from 6 to 6:10 in the quad. And then there are 10-minute class sessions where parents go to each of their children's classes. And then, of course, there's passing time. So as Ryan talked about, it's a good way to get a snapshot. Well, any of the back-to-school nights are a good way to get a snapshot in the lives of your children during the day. But if you can make tomorrow night, that would be awesome. And I think with that, cabinet rest.
Great, thank you. Always so helpful to hear from all of you. Thank you for all those updates. Very interesting, helpful, staying connected. So with that, as we always say, future bullet topics is there, but really you can pass along future anything that you would like to have to Marcy, and then we will review that and put it into the hopper for our board meeting planning. don't think we have anything else on the agenda here, so I'm looking around with that. We can go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 8:50.